My name is Corinne. Believe it or not, at 34, I've recently become obsessed with a boy band. I want to share a bizarre story that happened to me 7 years ago. Back then, I was dating Ronald, who was the same age as me. We had been together for 2 years already. We both worked at the same bank, not to sound snobbish, but we were both pretty successful. As a couple, we were thriving both financially and career-wise at a young and vibrant age of 27. Naturally, we were both seriously considering marriage, or at least I was. However, no matter how long I waited, Ronald never proposed. Not only that, our dates started becoming less frequent. Eventually, he even stood me up. Worse yet, it was the day we were supposed to go see a movie I had been wanting to watch. It wasn't just about missing the movie. I felt like my feelings were being disregarded. I knew for a fact that Ronald wasn't busier than usual at work. If anything, his career seemed to be on a decline, especially compared to his colleagues. To put it simply, it had been overtaken by other coworkers. To make matters more complicated, I was getting signals at work that a promotion was coming my way. I couldn't help but think, am I going to hurt Ronald's pride with my promotion? Despite being angry about being stood up, I kept making excuses for him. After all, sometimes it's healthy to have some space in a relationship, right? Or so I thought. Fast forward 3 weeks. It was our first date since that infamous no-show. Ronald was late again. When I called him, he simply said, "Sorry, I forgot. I'll be there soon." Huh? Again? Annoyed, but not wanting to fight, I waited at the restaurant we agreed upon. When Ronald finally showed up, he seemed distracted, as if his mind was elsewhere. I couldn't enjoy our time together. Every time we seemed to connect, he'd pick up his phone and start scrolling. How many times did you text this person today? The entire time, our eyes hardly met. He didn't even notice that I'd put extra effort into my hair and wore a dress I never wear to work. It's like he wouldn't have noticed if I was replaced by a teddy bear. That's what the atmosphere was like. Recently, I noticed that Ronald had been checking his phone frequently at work. I never contact him while I'm at work. Before diving into work, Ronald rarely checked his mobile phone. He always said it's because it would break his concentration. This is what he himself said. So when I saw him on his phone during our date, I wondered, is he giving up on his career? I felt anxious as if it was happening to me. Is he just not into this job anymore? On a date, of all times, what's with this attitude, darling? Isn't this too careless, especially towards your girlfriend? I felt increasingly annoyed by his indifference, and I decided to speak up. So, Ron, I've found someone I like. Excuse me? Like it's straight from a book. He told me he likes someone else. I then say, "Oh, that's nice. Who is she?" "I think it would be miserable for us to stay together if neither of us intends to marry. It's better if we're with someone we actually like." It seemed he didn't realize how absurd it was to say he'd found someone else. What he says boils down to, I've been keeping a marriageable woman at my side with no intention to marry. "I'm sure you understand." "No, I don't understand. At all." I replied without missing a beat. My tone was harsh. Anger took over me. Ronald seemed slightly taken aback. "What do you mean you found someone else? A coworker?" I started peppering him with questions like a child. He stammered. "I have a right to know. Are you just interested in her, or is this someone you already are involved with?" I didn't want to say it. Was he two-timing me? I felt torn between wanting to forget him and the fact that I still had feelings for him. I hated myself for not being able to despise him completely. "No, I haven't cheated on you." I felt somewhat relieved. He wasn't lying. So is he infatuated with someone? Naturally, I asked Ronald about that as well. Then Ronald dropped a bombshell. "I've realized I won't be able to advance further in my career, so I'm considering an arranged marriage with someone from a good family background. What? I was speechless. I never expected him to say something like that. Any remaining feelings I had for Ronald vanished. You know, my older brother left home because he couldn't get along with our parents. They have high hopes for me and I want to meet their expectations, but I can't do it alone anymore. Marriage might be the answer. Maybe climbing another ladder somewhere else. He tried to explain. Ronald always acts like such a goody two-shoes, who's all about family values, and I was getting tired of it. Who does this guy think he is? Even though we're the same age, all I see now is a man who's not even a lover anymore. Just a guy trying to marry into money because he knows he's lacking. My parents set me up in an arranged marriage with the daughter of a major furniture company CEO, and I knew she was the one. That's gotta be the shallowest "she's the one" I've ever heard. He's only after her family's wealth, isn't he? What happened to love? So you're not in love with a person, but a wallet? My gaze toward Ronald grows icier by the second. Ronald seems to notice, looking increasingly uncomfortable. So he does feel a bit guilty, but the conversation reaches an unbelievable climax. Given that we're getting married, I'd like us to break up. What? How many times am I going to have to say what today? If he wasn't two-timing me, we shouldn't have been dating. He only met her through an arranged marriage setup. So they've decided to get married? This might have happened among old nobility who married without ever having dated, but we're in the 21st century now. What's going on? Did your family time travel or something? So you're not even dating her, but you're getting married? Well, her parents said yes, so they told me to break up with you, Corin. Parents? Again? How old are you? How obedient can you be? I'm getting frustrated. But then it strikes me. I've heard a similar story recently. As Ronald begins to falter, I crack a smile. I'll break up with you, but you have to introduce me to her right now. You at least know her contact info, right? He looks panicked, not knowing what I'm thinking. If you don't, I won't break up with you. I press on. I would happily break up with him, but I had my suspicions. If I'm right, and I'm pretty sure I am, I concealed a grin as I imagined what would happen next. And indeed, despite Ronald's objections, I succeeded in getting him to call over his arranged marriage partner. Ronald suddenly stands up, looking past me. I realize his arranged partner must have arrived and quickly turned around. I burst into laughter, clutching my stomach. I know it's not ladylike, but I couldn't help it. His arranged partner also recognizes me and exclaims, Corin? Oh, I knew it. I was thinking this sounded familiar. There aren't many heiresses in this neighborhood having arranged marriages, you know. Laughing heartily, I approach my arranged marriage partner, take her hand, and guide her towards our table. Ronald, looking utterly confused, keeps repeating, What? What? Frederica, if you didn't say no yet? In response to my comment, Frederica, my arranged marriage partner, or should I say, just Frederica, stomps her feet and says, I've been saying I really don't want this. You should just tell the truth, I suggest. What if they object? Frederica replies. Watching our exchange, Ronald interrupts. Hold on. What's going on? Why are Miss Frederica and you, Corin, chatting like you know each other? Are you acquaintances? Sisters. What? Ronald's eyes widen, unable to keep up with my straightforward answer. Look, Frederica is my fraternal twin sister. You're proposing to my sister. What? But you have different last names. Stop lying. Ronald starts to get heated, and I playfully calm him down, saying, Whoa. No point in lying about this. Just chill. I am chill, but you have different last names and you don't even look alike. Or do you? Apparently he's starting to see the resemblance. He keeps comparing our faces. I don't blame him. Most people have the same reaction when they see us sisters. Not all twins look like copies of each other, you know. There are many twins who don't look alike. There was a time when I mentioned our parents got divorced when I was in high school. I never talked about having a sister. Mom took me and Dad took Frederica. That's why we have different last names. No way, such a story. I didn't want this story either. A love triangle involving my sister and an arranged marriage. but it perfectly matches what I heard from Frederica the other day. I can't help but suppress a laugh. This time, I just let it out. Corinne, listen, don't get me wrong. It's not like I want to be with him or anything. Feeling sorry for her, I reply, "It's okay, I understand. I heard everything. Just tell him the truth." Frederica takes a sigh of relief and faces Ronald. "Mr. Ronald, I apologize. I'm already in a committed relationship." "What?" Ronald's mouth stays open as if it's broken. He just repeats, "What?" losing all vocabulary. "I hadn't settled on a marriage yet, so I didn't tell Dad. Then this arranged marriage happened. I'm really sorry, Ronald. I can't be with you." Despite being an heiress, Frederica, who isn't the brightest bulb, rejects Ronald with very straightforward language. I burst into laughter, holding my stomach while Ronald stands there in disbelief. "Impossible. Impossible." Confused Ronald and a relieved yet hesitant Frederica make quite the picture. Miss Frederica, could you consider?" "Sorry, I can't do it. I came to tell you that today." Frederica apologizes, yet the word "can't" comes out with undeniable force. Ronald freezes, eyes wide, as if he's lost his soul. His expression is so funny, it's painful to look at. Stomach and throat hurt from trying not to laugh. "Can you at least tell me why you can't?" Ronald persists, wanting a reason despite the blunt "can't." It's clear that his motivation has nothing to do with affection for Frederica. I feel contempt more than disbelief at his obvious desire for Frederica's wealth. Probably because everything about you is a no-go, Frederica's boyfriend is a successful entrepreneur, a CEO of an IT company. She's not going to choose a man like you who's looking to marry up. Everyone thinks her current boyfriend is the better choice. I throw Frederica a lifeline, to which she shyly replies, "I really like him. His face, his personality, everything. That's why it won't work." In other words, she's indirectly telling Ronald she doesn't like anything about him. As for Ronald, well, his face isn't bad, but his personality is another story. I totally get why Frederica wants to end things this way. Besides, my boyfriend isn't looking for an arranged marriage. I just found out you were dating Corinne. Marrying someone who would betray her is just unthinkable. The sharpest no Frederica has ever delivered. I almost applaud. "Corinne, can I go? I have plans with him," Frederica says. "Yeah, sure. Take care," I reply. Ronald tries to stop her, but Frederica firmly apologizes and leaves. "All right, I'm leaving too. Take care," I say to Ronald, but he doesn't react. Maybe he's too shocked to be interesting anymore? Listen, one last thing. My mom originally had an arranged marriage with my dad. Know what that means? Finally, Ronald meets my eyes, looking confused. It means my mom's family was prestigious enough to arrange a marriage with a CEO like my dad. My mom is now the CEO of a company allied with Dad's. Yes, our parents married to strengthen their company's alliances. Mom was the second daughter. She wasn't supposed to be a CEO, but the eldest son's health issues and the company's poor performance changed that. And this happened 6 months ago. Ronald didn't know because I felt it was irrelevant to us. "What? Then you are..." Facing a pale Ronald, I flash a peace sign and smile. "Yep, I'm the heiress you were after. Bye now." Just as I'm about to leave, "Wait, I was wrong. I realized you're the one for me after all." Ronald blocks my way, clutching the hem of my dress. The apology feels cheap. Listen, I'm not some cheap woman who'll marry anyone with money. I don't want a man who's less competent than me and aiming to marry up. No, thank you. I angrily yelled, "Don't you ever touch me again," and shrugged off the hem of my skirt he had grabbed. I heard Ronald sobbing from behind me saying, "It wasn't supposed to be like this," but I didn't turn back. Later, I spread the story at work in a lighthearted manner. One colleague praised me, "Go Corinne," while another encouraged me, "You did the right thing breaking up. I can introduce you to someone nice." As my reputation soared, Ronald's image and standing plummeted beyond repair. He lost the trust of our boss, and his career prospects took a nosedive. The gossip even reached other branches where Ronald's classmates worked, making matters worse. Since Ronald brought this upon himself, no one took his side, no matter how much he was bad-mouthed. Before I knew it, the rumor evolved. He proposed to triplets and tried to marry them all. What a loser! In reality, they were twins, and the proposal was a bit of a stretch. But the guy was a jerk regardless, so I didn't bother to correct the rumor. Eventually, Ronald felt so ostracized he resigned. In a tough job market, he struggled to find a new job. And when he did, the workplace went bankrupt. I heard he's still unemployed. What a waste of his so-called elite status. Meanwhile, Frederica introduced her boyfriend to Dad and got married amid comments like, "Why didn't you introduce this amazing guy sooner?" I also got promoted and was climbing the corporate ladder that Ronald had abandoned. When I was past 30, I married an accountant a coworker introduced me to, and quit my job to focus on raising our 2 daughters. I could afford to be a stay-at-home mom thanks to my husband's hard work. Back when I was in my 20s, I had dreamt of marrying an elite banker, and I've been restless in my indecisive relationship. Now I'm grateful I didn't end up with a man who's like a fruit fly, attracted only to what others have. Marrying in haste can turn out to be a mistake. Now I plan to share my experiences with my daughters, teaching them to steer clear of men who are only after marital gains.
Living expenses? What do you mean by that? I've never received anything like that before. My mother-in-law looked genuinely baffled. Hey, what's going on? Brian, explain it properly. My husband, who was shrinking before us, was cornered by both myself and my mother-in-law. My name is Carol. I'm a 37-year-old office worker. I live with my husband, Brian, and my mother-in-law. Brian and I met through a mutual friend and quickly hit it off. We were married within 4 months of meeting each other. Since we were both over 35, our parents and in-laws were overjoyed. Our relationship was also great. Since our first visit for marriage introductions, my mother-in-law and I had gone out for meals several times and had become close. Initially, we lived separately but close by. However, after my father-in-law passed away, we moved in together. Despite what people say, there was no mother-in-law bullying and our life was going smoothly. My mother-in-law would do the housework instead of me. I felt guilty, but as often as I got home late, I depended on her. It might sound odd, but I was grateful and had been giving her some living expenses and a small token of appreciation through my husband. However, that didn't mean I could leave everything to her. But since she always said it was fine, I had been relying on her. Since my husband's food consumption has increased recently, I have become a bit worried about whether the amount of money I provide for our daily expenses will be sufficient. So I decided to discuss this with my husband first. Hey, about the living expenses we're giving to your mom, you've been eating a lot lately and she's been doing all the cooking and cleaning, right? I'm thinking we should increase it a bit. What do you think? Huh? It should be fine, right? She's probably happy that her son and daughter-in-law are living with her and she hasn't said anything about it being insufficient. Don't you think we need to show our appreciation? Not just in words, but in a tangible way. So I'll give a little more next month. Could you pass it on to your mom? At my suggestion, my husband nodded with a happy smile. Really? That's great. I was actually thinking the same thing. Thanks. I thought he was being a little too optimistic, but this wasn't the first time, so I decided not to worry about it. I decided to give a bit more. Then, a little while later, I had a severe accident. I collided with a bike at an intersection. I fractured a bone and had to be hospitalized for 2 weeks. My husband brought me my stuff on the first day. Hey, are you okay? It looks painful. I'll let my mom know. That would be great, thanks. Since it's a shared room, I can't make a call. Could you tell her that I'll contact her once I'm able to move? My husband cheerfully responded, Sure, I got it, and went home. I was a bit worried, but I told myself that's how he always is. But then a week passed. Despite waiting, my husband never came. Not even my mother-in-law. Even if my husband was busy with work, it was unthinkable that my overprotective mother-in-law wouldn't come to visit me when I'm not feeling well. I moved to the lounge room with crutches. There was no contact on my cell phone either. I called my husband first, but he didn't answer. Well, he's probably at work, I thought. And then I called my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law picked up on the third ring. "Oh, Carol, you sound beat. What's up?" "Hi, mother-in-law. You must have heard from Brian, but I'll be in the hospital for another week. So I'm sorry, but I'll need some fresh clothes." "What? Hospitalized? What happened? An injury? Illness?" I could tell from the other end of the call that my mother-in-law was flustered. My mind was filled with question marks. There was no sign that my mother-in-law was lying. Could it be that Brian forgot to tell his mother? But if that was the case, she would have noticed my absence and called me immediately. Anyway, my mother-in-law quickly said she'd visit and hung up. And 30 minutes later, she appeared in front of me, drenched in sweat. The hospital is about 40 minutes from home by train and foot. She must have hurried over. "Thank you for coming, mother-in-law. What did you hear from Brian?" "You were going on a business trip for 2 weeks. He told me it was sudden, so he asked me to pass it on. Yes, Brian is also on a business trip." At that statement, a possibility dawned on me. My husband might be cheating on me. Why? Because Brian is an illustrator, so he can work from anywhere. But according to him, the home environment is the best for work, and unless something significant comes up, he doesn't go out. Even if there are occasional local meetings, I know that the company doesn't arrange for a meeting that requires a business trip. How do I know? The answer is simple. Because I work in the same company as an administrative staff member. "What's wrong? You look pale. Are you feeling unwell?" "Mother-in-law, our company wouldn't send Brian on a business trip. That's the job of the sales team. I'm in admin, so I don't go on business trips either." At my words, my mother-in-law tilted her head. I wished I could have been as naive. In other words, Brian lied. There's been no notification of his absence for a week, so I guess he's still working. I wonder where he really is. He left his injured wife in the hospital and lied to me. Did Brian tell you where he was going on business? Now that you mention it, he said he was staying in a hotel in Miami, that the company had arranged it. Oh yes, here it is. My mother-in-law showed me the hotel's website she found on her smartphone. It was a hotel we had stayed at during a previous vacation. It was where we stayed for our wedding anniversary. Of course, it was more expensive than other places, not a place where a company would cover the accommodation cost. I felt a headache coming on from such a sloppy alibi. "Mother-in-law, this is hard to say, but Brian might be cheating." "What? Brian? But this situation does seem suspicious." "Oh, isn't this the hotel? Hold on a moment. Let's confirm if he's really there," my mother-in-law said and called somewhere. After a while, she hung up with a smirk on her face. "They said they'll check it out for me. First, we need to verify the facts." Turns out that the hotel is run by my mother-in-law's relative. She told Brian about it before, but he either forgot or didn't care. About 10 minutes passed when I got a call from my mother-in-law. The results were damning. My husband, Brian, seemed to be staying overnight at that hotel, and with a woman no less. Although it was not allowed, the situation was special, and my mother-in-law told me the name which Brian was with. I was shocked to hear the name. I know her, actually. She's a friend of mine. Mother-in-law was equally surprised by this revelation. Turns out the other woman was my coworker and friend, Jessica. Jessica works in the same department as Brian. She was even the one who introduced me to him. She had attended our wedding, even giving a speech. Mother-in-law was furious, her face turning bright red. I had to hurriedly stop her from calling Brian. "Let's gather solid evidence first. Hire a private detective. After that, I'm going to file for divorce. I can't accept a man who cheats with my friend. I plan to seek alimony, so I'm sorry for the trouble this will cause you, mother-in-law. Don't worry about it. I'll give that idiot son of mine a piece of my mind. How dare he betray such a good wife? When he comes back, he'll get a thrashing. I felt a bit uplifted by mother-in-law's words and started looking for a private detective. A relative of mother-in-law recommended a detective agency, and I decided to hire them. After reading the report they provided, I couldn't help but laugh. Turns out my friend, Jessica, was pretending to be the wife of my husband while they were on location. 3 days before my scheduled discharge from the hospital, I called Brian. I kept it a secret that mother-in-law knew about me. "How are you feeling?" "I'm sorry I've been too busy to visit. I'll definitely pick you up on your discharge day. Do you need anything?" "No, I'm fine. Sorry for being a bother while you're so busy. Apparently my recovery is taking longer, so my discharge date has been extended. I'm just calling to let you know. I'm borrowing things like pajamas from the hospital, so no need to worry. Looks like I'll be discharged a week from now. Sorry for not being able to support you while you're so busy. Oh, could you withdraw money for the hospital bills? I don't have any cash on hand, so could you do it on my discharge day?" "I see. That sounds tough. All right, I should be done with my delivery in a week, so I'll go to the bank before picking you up. My mom's been worried too. She's caught a cold and feels bad for not being able to visit you." Brian nonchalantly lying through his teeth. Knowing it was all lies, I had to restrain myself from laughing. "Oh, is that so? Please tell mother-in-law to take care. Did you manage to inform the office? Thank you. Did they say anything about allowances?" "Eh?" "Oh, they did. I'll take care of the procedures. You just rest and recover. Hope you get well soon." "All right, thank you. See you in a week then." I already knew what Brian had told the office about me. I had confirmed it with the office before Brian's call. Brian apparently told the office that he was going on a trip and applied for my leave. So my boss asked right off the bat, "How was the trip? Are you getting good rest?" After I explained my situation, my boss decided to visit the hospital immediately. Not only my boss, but also the HR department came to the hospital. And it turns out I'm entitled to sick leave benefits. I found out that my husband, Brian, has been out of touch for about a week, and he's also running late on his deadlines. The same seems to be true for his mistress. They can't seem to get in touch with her either. It turns out that something like this has been going on for the past 6 months, and it's finally come to a head. So they came to talk to me. I told my bosses that I wanted them not to mention this to Brian or his mistress until a week later. And after that, they can impose any punishment they see fit. As planned, I was discharged from the hospital. It seems that Brian had submitted another application for my paid leave, and his mother, my mother-in-law, got a call from him saying that his business trip was extended. Despite my hospital stay being extended because I'm not feeling well, he's extending his vacation with his mistress. It's clear there's no love left for me. I felt a bit sad. I decided to take my paid leave as planned. My boss told me to take as much time as I needed. For a week until Brian returned, my mother-in-law and I prepared to give him a piece of our minds. The day before, I was supposed to tell Brian about my discharge from the hospital. I called him. "Hello, how is your mother doing?" "I'm feeling good and I got discharged today. It was sudden, so don't worry about picking me up. I can pay with my credit card." "You're working today, right, Brian?" "Don't worry about me." "What? Really?" "Got it. I have a meeting soon and another one tonight, so I won't be home until late. Sorry." "That's fine. Don't worry about it. I'll take a taxi home." I barely held back a laugh at the sound of the shopping center announcement in the background of Brian's call, and responded. Then I calmly hung up the phone and pressed the button on the voice recorder. I had already heard from the detective that Brian was planning to go shopping today, so I intentionally called him at that time. When I checked the voice recorder, Brian's voice and the announcement were both clearly recorded. Brian had apparently contacted my mother-in-law, telling her that he was actually on vacation with a friend. He claimed it was a working vacation of sorts, so it wasn't exactly a lie. Andy said that he had gotten my approval and that I had told him not to tell her about my hospitalizations so as not to worry my mother-in-law. I couldn't help but laugh at Brian's absurd excuses. The detective informed me that Brian had boarded a late-night flight back. My mother-in-law and I laid out all the documents on the table and waited for Brian to return. However, Brian called me and said this: "Sorry, the meeting ran late and I missed the last train. I'll be back on the first train tomorrow." "Is that so? That's tough." "Got it. Sorry I can't pick you up." I responded like that and hung up the phone. After enjoying a 3-week affair trip, it seems he still can't get enough. My mother-in-law was furious, but I found that my love for Brian had completely disappeared, and I was able to remain calm for the discussion. Then, the next day, looking exhausted, Brian came home loaded with souvenirs. "You went on a trip? I didn't hear about that." "Huh? Didn't I tell you? Sorry, my bad. I got friendly with a client and they invited me. Business relationships matter, right?" my husband said nonchalantly as I took a bag from him and led him to the living room. "I'm home. Hey, what's up with you, Mom? You look scary," Brian said, plopping down onto a chair with a grin on his face. He seemed to believe that his mother was on his side, but as soon as he saw the documents laid out on the table, his face went pale. I sat next to my mother-in-law and pointed at a photo. "Oh yes, you seem to have had quite the fun. Your trip with Jessica. Leaving your injured wife for 3 weeks. Were you in a honeymoon mood?" I asked. What's this? Carol, stop fooling around." Brian stammered at me, his face contorting. "Unfortunately, this is no joke. I have evidence from a private detective. You were pretty careless, weren't you? Your dinner conversations were totally bugged. Staying at a hotel run by our relatives, you must have thought you wouldn't get caught." At this, Brian's face turned even more shocked. He looked at his mother for help. "Mom, it was a lapse in judgment, so I..." "A lapse in judgment that lasted 3 weeks seems a bit too long, don't you think?" His mother cut him off with a cheerful smile. Brian, who had been hoping for help, was stunned. "Here, these are documents for a claim for damages and a divorce application. Fill it out now." "Damages? Divorce? Carol, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. The one I truly love is you. Can't you forgive me? Let's start over." In response, I pressed a button on my phone. Out flowed the voices of Brian and Jessica. It was a conversation recorded by the detective, hinting at a divorce with me and a remarriage with Jessica. Brian's face turned even bluer. "It was just a spur-of-the-moment thing. I didn't mean it." I couldn't care less, really," I said, handing him the documents and urging him to write. "Please, forgive me. I can't afford to pay any damages." "Well, that's what happens when you splurge like that. Where did all that money come from, anyway?" Brian mumbled something incoherent. I had a bad feeling about it. "You didn't by chance use the living expenses I had been giving you to give to mother-in-law, did you? You have been passing it on to her, right?" The person who reacted to my words was not Brian, but mother-in-law. "Living expenses? What are you talking about? I've never received anything like that," mother-in-law said, seemingly genuinely unaware. "Hey, what's going on here? Brian, explain it properly." Mother-in-law and I cornered Brian, who had shrunk considerably. "I'm sorry, the living expenses. I used them for our dates." I felt my already icy affection for Brian grow even colder. He said he had spent the almost $2,000 I had been giving him every month. All of it. "I told you that money was for groceries, utilities, and to thank mother-in-law. That money was mine in the first place." "I'm sorry, my salary alone wasn't enough." It was clear what wasn't enough. The designer items Jessica had. Surely there must have been gifts from Brian. I swiftly raised my hand, but it was stopped by my mother-in-law. Brian, with hopeful eyes, watched as mother-in-law stopped me. He still seemed to think mother-in-law is on his side. You can't, Carol. If you lay a hand, it'll be your disadvantage, mother-in-law said, turning around to face Brian, then sharply slapped his cheek. To the stunned Brian, mother-in-law spoke calmly and monotonously. I've always thought the sillier the child, the cuter. I've spoiled you too much. Even with the bias, you grew up kind and your father and I were so happy when you got such a good wife, but now I'm cutting ties with you. But Mom, you're joking, right? Mother-in-law slapped away Brian's pleading hand and handed him a document. It contained a clause renouncing inheritance. Brian widened his eyes and muttered, I can't believe it. It doesn't matter if you can't believe it. It's all true. At mother-in-law's firm stance, Brian hung his head and signed. Make sure you write this too. I'll be claiming from Jessica as well. I'll add on the amount she spent. Oh yes, the company knows everything. Brian, completely dejected and seemingly out of arguments, signed all the documents I presented. Afterward, mother-in-law kicked Brian out. He had apparently been misusing company entertainment expenses and was claimed for reimbursement from the company. Brian is said to be living in an apartment without a bath, forced into a poor lifestyle with what's left after paying alimony and reimbursement. Claimed alimony from his mistress, Jessica. Turns out Jessica was married and her husband was away on business, so I contacted her husband through social media and claimed alimony. As a result, Jessica avoided divorce but had to quit her job. She was forced to live with her husband's family. They live in a rural area without internet connection, and she's said to be forced to work from dawn till dusk. I ended up being adopted by mother-in-law. Having lost my parents early, I decided to take care of mother-in-law till the end. Mother-in-law was initially reluctant because of Brian's infidelity. However, in the end, she accepted, and we sold the house, bought a new house for just the two of us. I want to take good care of mother-in-law.
My name is Emily, and I work as a corporate employee. Living with me is my husband of the same age, Michael, and our 5-year-old son, Ethan. Michael and I met at a group date organized by a friend. Impressed by his straightforward character and persistent courtship, I felt safe and decided to marry him. In our early days of marriage, Michael was proactive with household chores, and I felt deeply cared for. I sincerely believed marrying Michael was the right choice. However, the days of bliss were to crumble sooner than expected. 2 years into our marriage, we were blessed with a new life. Michael shared in my joy, and I was convinced our happiness would only multiply from there. But reality had a different script. As my belly grew, I noticed a cold shift in Michael's attitude. I didn't push the issue, thinking he might be feeling the pressure of impending fatherhood. I thought his perspective would change once he saw our child. Yet, when Ethan was born, Michael's attitude changed further, and not for the better. Despite my exhausted state after childbirth, desperately trying to care for our newborn, he offered no help. His annoyance with Ethan's night cries led him to sleeping in another room more often than not. I took a year-long parental leave and returned to work, but without Michael's help, the daily grind of childcare and work was draining me. Worse, Michael's return home got increasingly later. Being a full-timer myself, I wanted to share house chores and childcare responsibilities with him. But Michael seldom came home early, shattering my hopes. I'm overwhelmed doing everything by myself. Can't you come home a bit earlier? I'm working long hours for Ethan's sake. If you're not happy, why not work shorter hours? No matter how much I talked, he disregarded my pleas, suggesting that I should work less. If we could live on Michael's income alone, the story would be different. But that's not enough. That's why I resumed work just a year later. He didn't seem to understand that if my earnings reduced, so would our family's overall income. Moreover, I was always unhappy about Michael coming home drunk. This is a part of my work, whining and dining with clients. Michael is self-employed. He actively participates in these drinking sessions as he has to establish relationships with clients on his own. Having never experienced self-employment, I questioned if these daily drinking sessions were really necessary. 5-year-old Ethan began to understand things a bit more and seemed frustrated by his father's frequent absences. Why doesn't Daddy ever eat with us? Even on his days off, he just sleeps. I tried to pacify Ethan's growing resentment towards Michael by saying, Daddy is working very hard for us outside. Let's support him. But no matter how I tried to soothe him, Ethan seemed unconvinced. Given Michael's daily routine, he rarely had time to play with Ethan, even on weekends as he often slept till noon. Instead, he would laze around in his room till evening and then head out for another drinking session. Ethan doesn't like it either. At least spend some time with him on your days off. I'm working, aren't I? You're too naggy. Whenever I brought up his frequent nights out, he would just lash out. Doing my best to keep Ethan calm, our daily lives were filled with our quiet dinners together. Then I found out I'd have to go on a business trip on Saturday. Knowing Michael, he'd likely complain if he had to spend the day alone with Ethan. So, with some apprehension, I told him about the trip. I have an overnight business trip next Saturday. I need you to spend the day with Ethan. Is that okay? To my surprise, Michael seemed pleased. Sure, I'll take the opportunity to visit my parents. His response was the opposite of what I had expected, and I was taken aback. Michael seemed happy as he called his parents. They just sent an email suggesting we all take a trip, so we'll go together. A trip would surely make Ethan happy. It felt like a good opportunity to make up for not spending enough time with him. Michael had agreed to look after Ethan, so I felt relieved about going on my trip. And then the weekend arrived. Early in the morning, I left the house for my business trip. Please give my regards to your parents. I know. Take care. Seeing Michael in such a good mood, I felt relieved. It was work, but it would also be a day to myself for the first time in a while. I was looking forward to spending my time off as I pleased. The destination for the business trip was about 2 hours away by train. Come to think of it, this is near Michael's parents' house. The familiar sight from the train window brought back memories. It's been a while since I last visited. I should drop by sometime. I remembered coming to the department store near the station with Ethan. He was only 3 at the time. After lunch, Ethan was fussing about wanting ice cream. He cried so much that I ended up buying it for him. In the end, he was so full that he could only take a small bite, and it brought a smile to my face. He probably asked for it because we rarely came to this place. I remember being startled by how loud he was crying. As I was reminiscing about Ethan and watching the department store, I heard a boy's voice. I want ice cream. But we just had lunch, didn't we? You can't eat any more. But I really want to eat it. The boy was saying the same thing Ethan used to say. When I looked in the direction of the voice, I saw a sight that left me stunned. Ethan? There was Ethan and my in-laws. For some reason, Michael wasn't there, but he said they were going on a trip? My heart started pounding. Maybe Michael was in the restroom. Maybe the trip had been canceled. My mind was racing with different thoughts, and I was in a complete panic. Not understanding what was happening, I decided to call Michael to confirm his whereabouts. Hello, where are you now? Eh? We're at a hot spring with my parents. I see. Right, of course. Do your best on your business trip. Talk to you later. With that, he hung up. As I listened to the end of the call, I was left in utter disbelief. I had caught on to a big lie that Michael had spun. Convinced he was hiding something, I decided to dig into his actions in light of this incident. On Sunday evening, I made sure not to ask about how Michael and Ethan spent their day even after I came home. It was unnaturally quiet, Ethan not sharing anything about his weekend. Feeling a clear sense of unease, I resolved to gather evidence. The following day, Michael went to a social gathering after work as usual. He seemed heavily drunk that day, falling asleep on the living room couch as soon as he got home. What a nuisance. I couldn't help but sigh at the sight of Michael more inebriated than usual. Doing housework while looking at a drunken Michael was not a pleasant experience. After finishing all the chores, and just as I was about to leave Michael on the couch and head to bed, his mobile phone chimed. Seeing it as an opportunity, I peeked at his mobile phone to find a message on display. I gently picked it up, careful not to wake Michael. With a mix of anticipation and dread, I checked the screen. "Thanks for today. Can't wait to see you again." The moment I saw that message, my suspicions turned into conviction. Touching the screen of Michael's mobile phone, it opened easily. Recklessly, he had not set a lock on it. With trembling hands, I went through all the message history. The content was unbelievable. It made me feel dizzy. Michael was hiding something unthinkable. The next weekend, Michael said he was taking our son to his parents' house again. "You didn't get a break last week, right? This week you can relax by yourself." I knew what Michael was planning, but it wasn't time to reveal that yet. Pretending to be ignorant, I thanked Michael. "That sounds great. Maybe I'll relax at home and watch a movie." Even I found it amusing how poor my acting was as I pretended to be happy. Michael, oblivious to my act, seemed overtly relieved that I would be staying home. "Both of you, take care." After seeing them off at the front door, I made a call to a certain place. "Hi, I was hoping to request your services today. Is that okay?" "Thank you." The first step of my plan was successful. But I couldn't relax just yet. I had to move on to the next step immediately. I decided to discreetly follow them. With a cliched disguise and a hat I had bought just for this day worn low over my eyes, I watched from a distance. Just as expected, Michael left Ethan at his parents' house and went off somewhere else. Since I had already anticipated Michael's next moves, all I needed now was to gather the evidence. As my gaze shifted towards Ethan, I saw a lonely expression on his face. Seeing that face pained me. I couldn't stand letting Michael make Ethan feel this way without some sort of payback. I turned away from my in-laws' house and followed Michael to a cafe, his rendezvous point. "Oh, there you are. Sorry for the wait." A young woman arrived. Arm in arm, Michael and the woman disappeared into a nearby hotel. Without hesitation, I snap a picture. I never imagined I'd get such compelling evidence so easily. I felt deeply disappointed in Michael's foolish actions. After just a few minutes, I called Michael, figuring he just entered the room. "Hello? What are you up to?" "I'm at my parents' place. Why do you ask?" Michael responded, his voice obviously flustered. "I thought you could do some shopping on your way home." With my cheerful response, his voice brightened as if relieved. "Oh, is that all? Sure, I can do the shopping, but my parents asked me to stay the night. I thought I might." "Well, that's okay. I can do the shopping myself." Once again, Michael was planning to leave Ethan at his parents'. I felt a rush of anger, wondering whether he lacked awareness as a father. I worked hard to hide these emotions. I no longer had any feelings of love for Michael, who continued to lie. After hanging up the phone, I decided to pick up Ethan, who was likely feeling lonely. "Hello, I've come to pick up Ethan." Arriving at my in-laws' place, they seemed puzzled. "We thought Michael and you were both busy today. Is everything okay?" "I don't have any plans." They seemed even more confused when I responded. "Mom, you wouldn't believe this. Dad said he would play with me, but he left me alone. This is the second time. I hate Dad." Hearing my voice, Ethan ran up to me, his face a mix of anger and sadness. "I'm sorry, honey. Let's go home and play together." "Yay! Let me get my things!" After confirming Ethan had gone inside to collect his things, I revealed the truth to my in-laws. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Simply put, Michael is cheating. I saw him entering a hotel. When I showed them the pictures, their faces turned pale. "What? That guy?" "Michael has been going to a bar after work and is involved with a woman there. I've confirmed their message exchanges." "Mom, I'm ready to go." Ethan's arrival cut our conversation short. "I'll send the details via email. I don't want to discuss this in front of Ethan." "All right, we understand." Leaving them with that, I headed home. The woman Michael was cheating with was a bar staff named Olivia. I gathered this from their message exchanges. However, Olivia seemed to be unaware of the affair. Why? Because she believed Michael was single. Michael had hidden the fact that he had a wife and child. From their messages, it appeared Olivia contacted him for business purposes, but Michael was under the impression that spending money would escalate their relationship. Most likely, young Olivia was blinded by the money. Believing Michael was single, she repeatedly met him. I decided it was impossible to continue living with Michael. Before I started tailing him, I had explained the situation to my parents and asked them to help me move out today. They were furious at Michael and readily agreed to support me. Ethan, what do you think about us living at Grandma's place starting today? Sure, sounds good. Ethan was so engrossed in his game, I wasn't even sure he was listening to me. I realized I would have to explain things to him properly. Welcome back. What a rough day for you. We've moved your stuff into your room. Upon arriving at my parents' house, my in-laws welcomed us with warm smiles. Ethan, we made hamburgers for dinner. Yay! I love Grandma's hamburgers! Ethan seemed delighted at the prospect of his favorite food, which put my mind at ease. We used to visit my parents' house frequently, since it was close to our home. Ethan, being fond of his grandparents, didn't object to suddenly moving in. Our room was filled with countless boxes. Actually, ever since I realized Michael's infidelity, I had been gradually packing our belongings. Knowing that Michael was going to see Olivia that day, I hired movers to transport everything. Despite my initial apprehensions, the move was successful. I realized I would never return to that house again. As I was unpacking, I received a call from Michael. Emily, what's happening? He sounded panicked. Yes, what's the matter? So I got a call from my parents, and when I rushed to their house, Ethan wasn't there. It seems you might be under some misunderstanding. Oh, so it's a misunderstanding? Yes, it is. Even my parents are confused. They even scolded me. Interesting. Then, when I came home, all your and Ethan's stuff was gone. What's going on? It's exactly what it looks like. I can't live with you anymore. There's nothing more to discuss. Goodbye. I tried to maintain my composure as I hung up. It was too late for any explanations. Despite numerous attempts by Michael to contact me after that, I ignored him. Ethan, there's something we need to talk about. I knew I had to talk to Ethan properly about this. Daddy was friendly with another woman? You heard that? I knew that hearing this would be quite shocking for him. While I was trying to find the right words to comfort him, Ethan's reaction was surprisingly calm. I heard it. I don't want a dad like that. It's more fun being with Grandma and Grandpa. Ethan's feelings towards his father had already vanished. I consulted a lawyer about the next steps. Since I had substantial evidence, it seemed that pursuing a favorable divorce wouldn't be a problem. I had been obtaining evidence of the affair directly from Olivia. So, you're having an affair with my husband, aren't you? I'm sorry. He offered me money and But I didn't intend to have an affair. He said he wasn't married. I believe you. If you provide evidence of the affair, I won't claim compensation from you in the divorce proceedings. What will you do? All right, I'll tell you everything. Tearfully, Olivia spilled the beans. She must have been trying too hard to earn a living. Meeting customers outside the club was a breach of its rules. I promised Olivia that I wouldn't reveal her actions to the club, and in return she gave me information about Michael. Michael had been involved with Olivia for 5 years, starting when Ethan was born. The affair had lasted a long time, and thus the compensation amount in the divorce proceedings was significant. Afterward, I won a substantial settlement and child support in the divorce. As for Michael, he was abandoned by his family and the woman he had been smitten with stopped contacting him. Moreover, after paying the settlement, he was left penniless. His work was also negatively affected because news of his affair somehow leaked. He lost the trust of his favored clients and his income plummeted. He's now working multiple part-time jobs to make ends meet. Whether worn out from his life of loss, he asked his parents-in-law for help, but they refused to hear him out, practically cutting ties. I hope he reflects on his actions and tries harder. Ethan and I decided to continue living at my parents' home. Ethan seemed more lively after we moved in, and we're able to live comfortably. He's still attending the same preschool, so the only change for Ethan was the house we're living in. I was relieved that he didn't seem particularly stressed. Seeing Ethan's happy smile, I became certain that deciding to divorce was the right choice.
My name is Rachel. I live with my husband Samuel, our daughter Sarah, and my mother-in-law Lily. Mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflicts are not uncommon, and our household is no exception. Ever since I got married, Lily has been throwing shade my way. Be better at housework, your cooking is lazy, have kids already, just to name a few. Samuel always defends me though. However, Lily absolutely adores our long-awaited daughter Sarah. Sarah is equally fond of her grandma, making me realize that even the most critical people have a soft spot for their grandchildren. But with that affection came unwanted opinions on how we raised Sarah. I first noticed something was off when Sarah was 2.5 years old. I started to feel anxious because she still wasn't speaking. Lily blamed me, saying it was my fault for letting the TV raise her. Upon Samuel's suggestion, we took Sarah to the hospital. The diagnosis was a developmental delay. Sarah had a disability. I was devastated, and Lily's words didn't help. How embarrassing that my grandchild has a disability. We can't even face society. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The same Lily who doted on Sarah now looked at her with cold eyes I had never seen before. There is no history of disability in our family. Rachel, are you sure Sarah is Samuel's child? She isn't the result of an affair, is she? Her harsh words shocked me. Well, you're not denying it. Could it be true? I can't believe you would say that, Lily.
Mom, stop it. There is no way Rachel would cheat. Sarah is our beloved daughter, disability or not. If you have a problem, you can leave.
Samuel's heated response made Lily backtrack. Oh, I was just joking. Sorry, Rachel. As she started giving candy to Sarah. Since then, mother-in-law has continued to adore Sarah without saying a word, but only when Samuel is around. But the moment he left, the snide comments began. Sarah is such a pitiful child. I wonder what will become of her in the future. You know, I heard a boy with a disability injured someone. It's scary, isn't it? That's why I worry. Please stop, especially in front of her. We're doing everything we can to raise her well. Oh, come on. She has a disability. She doesn't understand what we are saying. She would just keep going. A daughter-in-law who can only give birth to children with disabilities? Maybe that was a mistake. They say older mothers are more likely to have children like this. We should have gotten a younger daughter-in-law. No matter how many times I asked her to stop, she wouldn't listen. I couldn't bring myself to tell Samuel, who genuinely believed his mother had changed for the better. My father-in-law has just passed away, and if mother-in-law gets kicked out, she has nowhere else to go. Besides, she does love Sarah in her own way. Taking away Sarah's beloved grandmother wasn't something I could easily do. It's not the time to be down. I have got to be strong for my daughter. That's what I would tell myself every time her words hurt me. Sarah is now 7 years old. She speaks slowly but surely. She's in special needs class in elementary school. Samuel and I warmly watch as Sarah grows at her own pace. Mother-in-law still laments, why can't she be like other kids? Then one day, I felt something strange in my body and suspected I might be pregnant. I went to the OBGYN and sure enough, I was expecting our second child. I happily shared the news with Samuel and mother-in-law.
Way to go, Sarah, you're gonna be a big sister.
Sarah also looked delighted. It was a moment of happiness. But what if the next one also has a disability? Mother-in-law said, looking concerned. Raising 2 children with disabilities is tough. Maybe you should consider terminating the pregnancy.
Mom, what are you saying? We don't even know if the child will have a disability.
Oh, you're even older now than when you had Sarah. That means the chances are even higher. And let's face it, it runs in the family. The next one will surely have a disability too.
Mom, enough is enough. We are raising both kids, no matter what.
After my mother-in-law shrugged her shoulders and walked away, Samuel turned to me.
Hey, are you okay? If you can't stand this, Rachel, we can always separate, you know?
I'm fine. She adores Sarah in her own way. She'll come around with this child too. Little did I know I would later regret this decision. One day, I noticed my belly was starting to show. While playing with Sarah, the doorbell rang and the front door opened. Hey there, Rachel. How's it going? The face that appeared was Samuel's younger sister, Emily. She was holding a paper bag. Emily lives on her own and has always admired me. Emily has always been fond of me, subtly shielding me from mother-in-law's snide remarks. She's also great with Sarah. She's genuinely a bright and cheerful person. We often go shopping together. Mother-in-law seems to have a soft spot for Emily, her late-in-life child, so Emily's presence often keeps mother-in-law's passive aggressiveness at bay. Emily, long time no see. Oh, Emily, you should have called before coming. Emily, let's play. Emily smiled at the warm welcome from the three of us. I came because I have something I want to show you, Rachel. Saying this, we both went upstairs to my room. Ta-da! I found a dress that would look great on you, Rachel. Emily took a stylish dress out of the bag. It's a nice gesture, but I'm pregnant. I wonder if it would suit me. Noticing my hesitation, Emily spoke up. Why don't you try it on? When I did, I found that the dress not only fit well, but also did accentuate my baby bump. Wow, I didn't know something like this existed. Thank you. You're welcome. Actually, I bought another one just like it. I wanted us to match. Emily then took out another dress identical to the one she gave me. Sarah, seeing this, ran excitedly to my mother-in-law. Grandma, Mom is wearing a blue dress. What are you doing, Grandma? Oh, how nice for you. Just as Emily and I were enjoying our matching dresses, my mother-in-law called me. Rachel, we have guests. Come downstairs. Okay. As I was about to leave, Emily stopped me. It's fine. You need to take care of yourself. I'll go. Before I could reply, Emily left the room. Right after, a scream rang out and I rushed out in alarm. And then I found Emily lying at the bottom of the stairs. My mother-in-law was shouting, Rachel! Oh my God, Rachel! Snap out of it! I'm right here. What's going on? My mother-in-law glanced back and forth between me and Emily, clearly confused. Wait, then who is this? That's when she realized it wasn't me who had fallen, but Emily who was wearing the same blue dress. She turned pale. Emily, hang in there. Oh, what do I do? We quickly called an ambulance and Emily was taken away. I was praying hard for Emily's safety. Sarah was also crying. However, something didn't sit right with me. My mother-in-law had said we have guests, but there were no guests to be seen. I was growing suspicious of her crying. In light of my sister's emergency, even my husband rushed back from work. Luckily, Emily regained consciousness quickly and gave us her usual innocent smile from her hospital bed. However, she had broken her leg and wouldn't be walking for a while. Ellie, are you okay? I'm sorry if I had been there. It's not your fault, Rachel. I'm the clumsy one. I felt like something tripped me, even though there was nothing there. I didn't miss how my mother-in-law was visibly shaken by those words. Is it the string? Sarah said, revealing something in her hand. Granny had strung this across the top of the stairs. This is piano wire. What's going on, mother-in-law? Stringing piano wire across the stairs could only be seen as malicious. Don't make absurd accusations, you disabled person. Mom, Sarah may be disabled, but she doesn't lie. What's this piano wire about?
Mom, what's going on? Were you actually trying to harm your own daughter?
Even Samuel, my husband, turned against mother-in-law. No, I never meant for Emily to get hurt. So, you meant for Rachel to get hurt, didn't you? You said we had guests and called Rachel out. That's right, and there were actually no guests. My mother-in-law had nothing to say.
Mom, were you trying to kill Rachel and the child she's carrying? Your own grandchild? Why would you do something so horrible, Mom?
Enough! I don't need a daughter-in-law who gives birth to disabled children. The room went ice cold at her words. My mother-in-law continued without pause. Sarah turned out that way, so the next one will surely be disabled too. It's better for both mother and child to be gone now so they won't have to suffer later.
Mom, are you serious?
Of course I am. Sarah can't even read at her age, unlike other kids. She's a failure. At his mother's harsh words, Samuel raised his voice.
Mom, how could you say that?
People with disabilities only lead lives of struggles. They're a burden. They have no reason to live. The woman who gives birth to a child with disabilities is no better. She's ruining your life, Samuel.
Mom, you used to dote on Sarah.
I feel sorry for her as my grandchild, but that was a mistake. To think she would tattle. I thought she couldn't understand anything because she has a disability. Mother-in-law glares bitterly at Sarah. That's why she could set a trap in front of Sarah. I shuddered at the thought that they underestimated Sarah because she has a disability. Maybe if they succeeded, they were planning to go after Sarah next? It's a chilling thought.
Mom, do you understand what you tried to do is murder?
It was for you, my dear son. I didn't want to see you struggle because of a child with a disability. Why didn't you divorce this woman with flawed genes and find a younger one? At his mother's audacity, Samuel shoots her an icy look unlike any she's ever seen before.
Mom, there's something I never told you. Remember how I was bullied a lot as a child?
Oh yes, you often came crying to me.
As an adult, I struggled with relationships and sought medical help. That's when I learned that I have a developmental disability.
Samuel shows her a card certifying his disability. You are...
Yeah, if this disability is hereditary, the cause isn't Rachel, it's me.
Why didn't you tell me?
How could I tell a woman who would even think of killing her own grandchild just because they might have a disability?
The mother-in-law is at a loss for words. I would never kill you.
Who knows? But I should have told you earlier, then maybe you wouldn't have tried to harm Rachel. I'm truly sorry, Rachel and Sarah.
Samuel apologized to us.
When I was shocked to learn I have a disability, it was Rachel who stood by me.
That's right. I fell for Samuel, a gentle, if quirky man, and told him, disability or not, I love you for who you are.
Right now, I'm thriving at work and even leading big projects.
Some people with disabilities, including those with savant syndrome, show exceptional talents. Samuel is one of them, using his talents in his work.
Life ruined? That's nonsense. I'm happy. Are you saying that people with disabilities don't deserve to live? That woman who gave birth to them are at fault too? That hits pretty close to home for me and my mom.
I didn't know. This is different. Mom, I'm the same. I can't walk now, so that makes me disabled too. You're the one who put me in this situation. Please forgive me, Emily. You weren't the target. Even the ever-smiling Emily glares at my mother-in-law. You have got to be kidding. That's the least forgivable thing. I can't forgive a woman who insulted her adorable niece and almost killed Rachel and her unborn child.
Same here. I'm cutting ties with you, Mom. After trying to kill my wife and child and making Emily go through this, unforgivable. Please leave now.
The coldness in Samuel's voice sent shivers down his mother's spine. Please forgive me. I won't do it again. I have nowhere else to go.
Then your only option is prison.
Prison?
Of course, what you have done is attempted murder. But whether to press charges is up to Rachel.
Just as the decision fell on me, my mother-in-law began to apologize profusely. Rachel, I am sorry. Please, not the police. I was torn. What she did is unforgivable, but she's also Samuel and Emily's mother. Above all, I didn't want Sarah and our unborn child to have a criminal for a grandmother. I won't report you to the police, Rachel. But I will sue you for damages. And you're leaving, never to see Sarah or our upcoming child again. How will I live? Looking around at the unsupportive faces, her eyes finally land on Sarah. Sarah will miss her grandma, won't she? I have doted on her so much.
Mom, stop it.
I couldn't believe my ears. The same woman who insulted Sarah for her disability was now clinging to her for help? So they still think Sarah doesn't understand anything because she has a disability? When I look at Sarah, she is giving mother-in-law the same cold stare that Samuel and I are. Grandma, you don't like me, do you? No, that's not true. Grandma loves you, Sarah. That's a lie. You said I'm a burden and trash. Sarah spoke slowly but clearly. She understood exactly what her grandma had said. I don't like you, Grandma, for picking on Mom, the baby, and Emily. So goodbye. You insolent brat, despite your disability. Samuel grabbed the hand mother-in-law had raised against Sarah and twisted it.
Enough is enough.
Ouch! Let go.
Hurt? Emily suffered more. If Rachel had fallen for your trap, she would have suffered even more.
Help! Ache! Mother-in-law screamed as Emily watched her with icy eyes. Mom, you're not remorseful at all. You won't have anyone to take care of you in the future. What? Mother-in-law broke down. We forcibly made her stand and kicked her out of the hospital room and, of course, out of our lives as well. Afterwards, Emily and I successfully sued mother-in-law in civil court and won a significant settlement. I also gave birth safely a healthy baby boy. Sarah loves her baby brother and plays with him every day. Emily, who has recovered from her broken bones, had a shotgun wedding with a coworker one day. They often come to visit with their newborn, showering our children with love. Mother-in-law, unable to even see her grandchild's face, lives alone in a cheap apartment dealing with the shock. She is also in debt due to the settlement and seems to be struggling in life. Everyone becomes a disabled person in some way as they age, but no one will be there to help mother-in-law. Of course, we have no intention of helping her. We hope she lives a life full of regret. We're not yet sure if our son has a disability. He might be like Sarah, and we'll know early on, or like Samuel, and we won't know until he's older. But whether our children have disabilities or not, they are our precious ones. We have decided to nurture them lovingly.
My 3-day-old newborn has yet to meet his father. This is because my husband began avoiding me as the due date is getting closer. Even when I let him know I was going into labor, he didn't rush to the hospital. 3 days after my first childbirth, my husband finally showed up. He introduced a woman I don't know, dropped a bombshell on me, and said, "This is my girlfriend. I want a divorce." My name is Jennifer. I met my husband John at a college club. John was a well-known, handsome senior at the college, and I was one of the women who admired him. Not to brag, but I was quite popular in high school and had been asked out countless times. Yet there was no one as wonderful as John in my circle. When I first joined the club, he was already a senior and dating a famous beauty. I was just watching from afar, but it seemed he picked up on my feelings for him. Remarkably, he broke up with his girlfriend and started dating me just before graduation. I was over the moon being able to date the man I admired. Now that I look back, I may have been a bit too excited. 6 months into our relationship, I found out I was pregnant with his child. It was a pregnancy during my college years. My parents were furious and confronted him at his home. "Our daughter is still a college student. What the hell are you thinking?" I'm truly sorry. I'll take full responsibility for this." As he shrank back, my father's wrath was unrelenting. "What do you mean by responsibility? We won't allow you to hurt our daughter." I want to marry Jennifer, please." There, he proposed to marry me on the spot. I wanted to raise his child, become a family, and be with him forever. Moved by his words, I managed to persuade my parents to give their consent to our marriage. Although he had a job, he was still a newbie, just a year into his career. Both of us were anxious about raising a child at this young age. "Hey, John, I'm sorry it's turned out this way. I'll take on a part-time job or whatever it takes to support you." "Okay, I'm counting on you." Thinking about our child, I dropped out of college. To save money, we decided to live at our parents' houses until the childbirth. Obviously, there was no wedding ceremony, just the legal paperwork. To be honest, it didn't really feel like we got married. A few days later, John came to me with exciting news. "Jennifer, get ready to celebrate. After the birth, my mom's going to buy us an apartment." His father had already passed away and has only his mother in his family. My hard-working mother-in-law promised us to buy an apartment with her savings. When I made a thank you call to my mother-in-law, she gave me comforting words. "It's better for a couple to live together right after childbirth, isn't it? You can take it easy at your parents' home until your body recovers and get used to childcare." Though it is still a long way off to live together, he was apparently making frequent trips to the apartment to prepare for our new life. Being busy with these preparations, His visits to see me at my parents' home dwindled. I was suffering from severe morning sickness and couldn't move around much, so I couldn't visit the apartment and all the preparations were left to him. Hey, John, my belly's growing quite a bit, so I wish you'd come to see me more often. I told him over the phone, but the response was always the same. I'm swamped too, so maybe later. It was my first time in childbirth, and I wanted him to be there, but I couldn't be too demanding of him because he was preparing for our new life together. Having a healthy baby is the most important thing right now. That's what I kept telling myself, and I tried to be patient. But even my due date approached. He still didn't come to see me. I sent him a message on Facebook just in case. Right? We should start thinking about a name for the baby. Come see me when you have time. But no matter how many times I messaged him, I didn't get a reply. I didn't get to talk to him at all, and my due date arrived. That night, my contractions started, and we rushed to the hospital. My mom tried to call him, but he didn't answer. Maybe he was still at work. She left a message on his voicemail. John, Jennifer is in labor. We're at the hospital now, so please come down here as soon as you hear this. I endured the pain of the contractions while waiting for him, but he didn't show up or even call back. I was taken to the delivery room and gave birth to a healthy baby, and he didn't arrive after all. Seeing my child for the first time was indescribably wonderful, but everything from holding to feeding was new and scary. I wonder when he is coming to see the baby. I almost forgot about him until my mom said that. Now that I think about it, there's been no contact from him. I sent him another message asking him to come soon so the baby could see his daddy's face. Then finally I got a message. I'll be at the hospital the day after tomorrow. I was really excited waiting for him. I can't wait to show him our adorable child. He's going to be thrilled. 3 days after childbirth, I was soothing the baby in my hospital room, and then he finally showed up. There was a woman I didn't recognize standing closely behind him. She rudely approached the baby and said mockingly, "Wow, this isn't what I expected. Are newborns really this small? This is hilarious. Hey, we need to talk about this first." He didn't even look at the baby, and he was gently reprimanding the woman. What's going on? Who is she? I was completely confused. John, who is she? Oh, let me introduce you. This is Ava, my new girlfriend. A new girlfriend? My mind went blank. I didn't say anything until you safely gave birth, just to be considerate. But you seem fine, so I guess it's all good. Wait, hold on. I don't get it. The Ava I was introduced to is draping her arm around him, talking in a cloying voice. Oh, John, you gotta spill the beans to her. She's lost in the sauce. Seriously, she's been cooped up in the house the whole pregnancy. I guess it's not just her body getting sloppy, but her brain too. John is just going with the flow, not shaking off Ava's arm, and they're both having a good laugh. What? What in the world is going on? He coldly let it out while I was taken aback. I'm telling you that I've decided to be with Ava, so I need you to sign the divorce papers. Divorce? Don't say it like it's no big deal. What about our baby? Before I knew it, I was going bananas. This can't be real. I can't accept this. You were planning to stay at your parents' home after getting discharged anyway, right? Might as well stay there for good. I'm still young, and I don't want to be tied down by a kid at this age. What? What are you talking about? You said you'd man up. Your old man was breathing down my neck. I had to say something to calm the waters, you know? That's why I blurted out, I'll marry her. It was just a stroke of luck that your dad bought it. What about the condo your mom set up for us? Wasn't that for the three of us to live as a family? Oh, that. It was more gorgeous than I thought, so I figured why not use it how I want. I've always wanted a room for my hobbies. So you weren't going to the condo frequently to get it ready for us? No way! With a kid around, it'd get messy in a jiffy. That's why Ava and I decided to live there together. She seems she likes that place too. Picking out furniture for our place was such a blast. We gotta say thank you to your mom. This is messed up. I didn't know anything about this. Why all of a sudden? What's wrong with me? I was still pressing, and then he said, with looking down his nose at me, "Seeing you with that big belly, I just don't feel the spark anymore." That's cold. It's normal for my belly to get big when I'm pregnant. And besides, it's your baby. Then Ava chimed in. "Hey, don't you think this baby doesn't look much like you, John? You sure it's yours?" "Ha, yeah, maybe. I'm not the real dad, huh? Ha." "Oh no, poor John." Bah. That was the last straw. The words he had for his wife, who just gave birth, were heartless. I can't believe I ever dreamed of the future with him. Before I knew it, I was raising my voice at them. "I never want to see your faces again. Get out!" "Whoa, scary, ha. Postpartum depression, maybe." They left the room with laughing. He never even tried to see the baby, let alone hold him. I was in a daze and blankly watched them through the window as they headed to the parking lot. John and Ava were stopped by someone in the parking lot. Looking closely, I realized it was his mom. They were deep in conversation with her. I see. So mother-in-law is in the know already. I was the only one out of the loop. Huh. I closed the curtains and lay down on the bed. My only ally now is this little baby. Gazing at my beloved child, and then tears well up in my eyes. Suddenly the room's door swung open. Standing there were my mother-in-law and John. "What? Mother-in-law? And you too, John? I thought you were already gone." He was standing next to my mother-in-law and looking kind of sulky. "Where is Ava?" I asked, and my mother-in-law answered for him. "That rude girl. I drove that girl away already." Mother-in-law met them in the parking lot and found out what was going on. Just had a baby, and he was leaving me to live with Ava in a condo. Mother-in-law gave them an earful, apparently. "What the hell is she thinking? Moving into a condo that was bought for Jennifer and the baby. How dare she?" Mom. And even she had the nerve to say to me, "I can have cuter babies than the one that might not even be John's." Can you believe it? After driving Ava away, Mother-in-law had scolded him too. "I thought you were setting up a new home for Jennifer, but you were actually ditching her right after she gave birth. I can't believe what an idiot my own son is. Jennifer, I'm so sorry for the terrible things he said." No, it's okay. Thankfully, my mother-in-law seemed like a reasonable and kind person. But there's no way I could continue a married life with a man who would just abandon his pregnant wife with no hesitation. It's not your fault, mother-in-law, but now I know his true colors. Having mother-in-law on my side, I was completely calm. "John, as you wish, I'll grant you a divorce." At these words, he visibly relaxed. This didn't sit well with mother-in-law. "What about the baby?" she demanded sternly. "I will raise the child by myself." "By yourself?" Of course, there is anxiety in becoming a single mother, but it's probably better than having a father like him. My parents are also looking forward to life with the baby. They were even disappointed when I told them I'm eventually moving to the condo. I'm sure if I have a serious talk, they'll understand. After hearing my story, mother-in-law muttered regretfully, "Well then, I was looking forward to being a family with you and my grandchild. But if it's for your happiness, maybe this is for the best." "I'm sorry, mother-in-law. In that case, could you at least take the condo as an apology? Of course, I'll make sure he pays child support and alimony too." He panicked by hearing this. "Mom, wait. The condo was supposed to be for me. The furniture's already been all set up." Hearing this, mother-in-law shouted at him, "You idiot! I bought that condo because you said you'd live there with her and the baby. It's not for you. It's for her and the child." I am grateful for mother-in-law's sentiments, but there's no way I'd live in a place where he and Ava had been, even for a moment. "Thank you, mother-in-law, but I'll just accept your kind thoughts. I have no intention of living in that condo. For now, I plan to stay at my parents' home." John visibly relaxed at my words. See? She wants to be at her parents' home, so we'll keep the place like we planned. That makes sense. Ignoring him, my mother-in-law spoke to me. If your folks back home can help out, that's the best thing. Well then, I'll put that condo up for sale. What? Mom, hold on a sec. I said I'm gonna live there. Are you serious? Of course. So you'll be paying the loan then? What? The loan? That's a no-brainer. If you're living there, you pay up. Didn't you buy it outright? How the hell do you keep your brain organized? He was insistent on living in the condo for free, but my mother-in-law didn't budge an inch. The place she got for us was a really nice place, and there's no way for John, fresh out of college, could afford a condo. Then John, without learning his lesson, started to cling to me. Jennifer, I was wrong. It's not right for a family to be apart. Let's raise our child together in that condo. John exaggeratedly tries to pick up our child. I quickly snatch my baby away. Stop it. Don't touch my child. What do you mean, my child? The child is mine too, right? You just said a minute ago, I don't know if this child is mine or not. Well, I'm only divorcing because you said you wanted to. I have no intention of staying with you. It's better for my child not to have a deadbeat dad like you. Please, Jennifer, wait. Ignoring a pale-faced John, my mother-in-law is nodding in approval. Come on, Mom. Say something for me, too. Don't pull this stunt now. You just want to get back together so you don't have to give up the condo, right? She and I can see right through you. Mom? Enough. You show no love to your own child, and yet use as a pawn now? You moved in without asking so you and Ava can take care of moving the furniture and cleaning the place. Scolded by my mother-in-law, it seems like he finally gave up on the condo. Moreover, my mother-in-law is making him restore the place to its original state. My name is still on the deed. If you can't do it, I'll sue you for trespassing for all the times you've been in and out. After I left the hospital, the divorce went smoothly, thanks to my mother-in-law. After that, he apparently bit the bullet and cleared out his furniture and seems to have arranged for a house cleaning. Because he and Ava were boozing and making a mess in the apartment almost every night, so the cleaning cost an arm and a leg, even though he had just moved in. In light of this incident, his mother-in-law is pumped up and saying, I'm going to straighten out my son's act. She's making him take on an additional part-time job and is stashing away money for alimony and child support to give to me. Having no money and time at his disposal, he was promptly dumped by Ava. After all, it seems she was just cozying up to him for his cash. On the other hand, I moved back in with my parents after giving birth, and we're all pitching in to raise the child as I had vowed. At first, my parents were against me becoming a single mother, but once I told them about the nasty stuff he did to me, they were all in for the divorce and offered to help with raising the kid together. Holding back my dad, who looked like he was about to march over to John's place and give him a piece of his mind, was a challenge, though. Thanks to the support of the mother-in-law, alimony and child support payments are coming in without a hitch from him. Now that I don't have to worry about money, I can probably afford to postpone going back to work. When the kid grows up, there will come a time when I'll have to talk about his father, but I'm sure the day will come when he will understand my decision. I made a vow to myself that I will pour all the love I can into this child and make my child happy, not just from me, but enough to cover for his absent father as well.
That baby is crying so loud. I heard the unmistakable sound of a lock clicking. My husband had locked me in the storage shed with our 3-month-old daughter. Outside, snow was falling and the cold was biting. Please open the door! I banged on the door and shouted, but there was no response. Soon, I heard the sound of a car starting from the driveway next to the shed. It seemed my husband had left. The shed, located on the north side of our yard, never got any sunlight and had no heating. It was freezing. How could he lock up his own daughter, just 3 months old, in such a place and leave. I felt his cruelty and was terrified. After waiting for a while, my daughter, who had been sick with a cold since yesterday, began to shiver. Her cries grew weaker. I have to save her, no matter what. In my desperation, I searched for a way out. My name is Lisa. I'm a 32-year-old housewife. I met my husband Dennis at work, and we've been married for 3 years. When the younger and handsome Dennis asked me out, I felt like I was dreaming. I lost my parents in a car accident when I was 5 and was raised by my grandparents. They passed away just as I started working, leaving me all alone. Dennis had also lost his parents to illness. Maybe our similar backgrounds brought us closer. We began our life together in the house Dennis inherited from his family. It took a while, but last year I finally got pregnant, and now we have a 3-month-old daughter named Ellie. Our marriage and Ellie's birth should have been the happiest moments of our lives. But I had no idea that this was just the beginning of a nightmare. Dennis was always kind, working hard, and we had happy days. The only concern was his love for video games and the amount of money he spent on them. But he wasn't into gambling or drinking, so I thought it was okay. I believed that once we had a child, he would change. But when I told Dennis I was pregnant, his reaction was unexpected. I'm pregnant. Really? Wow. He looked uncomfortable and finally said, I'm not really good with kids. I was disappointed. I thought he would be happy. But once he sees our child, he'll surely find her adorable. But Dennis didn't. After a difficult labor, when I finally gave birth, I was over the moon with love for our daughter. But Dennis looked at her and muttered, She looks like a monkey. He neither held our baby nor comforted me after the birth. Instead, he seemed more interested in something else. Now that we have a child, we'll need money. So I searched the house and found this. My husband excitedly pulled out a banking card. It was the one that held the insurance money I received when my parents tragically passed away in a car accident. My grandparents had kept it safe for me, and aside from my college tuition, I hadn't touched it. There was about $30,000 on it. I didn't even know about this card until after my grandparents passed away. This money felt like it was in exchange for my parents' lives, so I kept it aside for emergencies. Why did you have this? Why didn't you tell me about this? It's a lot of money. It's from my parents' insurance. It's not something to brag about. With this much, we can splurge a bit. Let's buy a car. I've always wanted a sporty one. Dennis started listing other things he wanted, like gaming consoles, assuming he'd use the money. Wait, I don't want to use the money for that. It's our money, right? As a couple, let me use some. I want to save it for emergencies. We don't know what the future holds. We argued about it, but after a while, it seemed like Dennis understood. Fine, but I'll manage it while you're in the hospital. Give me the PIN. Something told me not to share the PIN with Dennis. No matter how much he insisted, I didn't. He stormed out of the room, sulking like a child, and never came back to visit. When I was discharged, Dennis wasn't there. I had to carry my baby and luggage alone and took a taxi home. But things got worse at home. Every time our daughter cried, which is normal for babies, Dennis would shout, She's so noisy. She's just a baby. That's why I hate kids. They're expensive and a hassle. Why did we even have her? That's harsh. If you're the mother, make her stop. Dennis wouldn't even hold our daughter. I was alone, without parents or grandparents, and had to care for her by myself. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Late at night, while feeding my daughter, I often held back tears. People change when they know there's money. Dennis started skipping work and became irresponsible. "We have money, right?" became his catchphrase, and he just lounged around playing games. "Why aren't you working? You can't just keep taking days off. You're always home. I just had a baby. If you want me to work, I will when she's older. We have money. Let me use it. It's what my parents and grandparents left for me. It's not shared property." We fought daily about money. Our daughter, sensing the tension, cried constantly. 3 months after she was born, Dennis quit his job. One evening, our daughter, who had been feeling unwell, started crying. My daughter, who had been suffering from a cold and had had a fever since the day before, started to get upset and cry. "She's so loud. She's sick and has a fever. Make her stop." I tried to soothe her, but she cried louder. "That's it." In a fit of rage, Dennis dragged us into a storage shed in the freezing winter. "Stop it!" I heard the lock click. "Open the door. Ellie has a fever." If we stayed in this cold shed, something terrible might happen to Ellie. I banged on the door, pleading, but Dennis wouldn't open it. Then he made a shocking demand. "Give me the PIN for the banking card." "What?" "Tell me and I'll let you out." I can't." "Then stay in there with Ellie forever." The shed was located on the north side of the yard, a place that never saw sunlight and lacked any heating. It was chillingly cold. The thought of locking up a 3-month-old baby in such a place, I felt the cruelty of my husband and became terrified. Right now, my daughter's life is more important than money. Reluctantly, I decided to comply with my husband's demand to get out of the shed. "Okay, I'll tell you the PIN, just open this." "Tell me the PIN first, then I'll open it." I was hesitant, but I decided to trust him. However, as soon as I told him the PIN, I heard him laughing, followed by the sound of a car driving away. Dennis had left. I've been tricked. I felt weak at the knees and crouched down, holding my daughter. Still, a tiny hope remained that he might change his mind and come back. To make matters worse, my daughter, who had been sick and feverish since the day before, began to shiver. I was only wearing a thin outfit, and even wrapping my daughter in a blanket didn't warm us up. The cold was biting, and my teeth started chattering. Despite my efforts to keep warm, the cold only intensified. Ellie's cries grew fainter, and her face turned pale. I can't wait any longer. I need to do something. Looking around, I spotted something. There! In the corner of the shed was an old, tarnished baseball bat. I used it to hit the shed door repeatedly. A small gap appeared, but it wasn't enough to unlock the door. Snow started to seep in through the gap. "Help! Someone, please!" I kept shouting through the gap. "Are you okay? What happened?" After a while, Mrs. Rothery from next door noticed and brought a crowbar from her house. She managed to pry open the door. Mr. Rothery, seeing my shivering daughter, immediately drove us to the hospital. Once there, the nurses took my daughter for tests and treatment. Seeing my worried face, Mr. Rothery comforted me in the waiting room and shared his story. His ex-wife had a controlling husband who would get violent and abusive when things didn't go his way. Even if Dennis didn't hit me, locking us in a freezing shed was life-threatening. Such actions could escalate, and he advised me to be careful. I decided I couldn't stay with such a dangerous man and planned to leave. Mr. Rothery advised me to act quickly. I left my daughter with Mrs. Rothery and went back home. Dennis wasn't home. As I was packing, I noticed my cash card was missing. Then I found some documents sticking out of Dennis's bag. What? He planned this far ahead? I'll never forgive him. Furthermore, when I returned to the hospital and saw the drastic change in my daughter's condition, I decided not to just flee, but to take action against my husband. The next morning, he called. Is the kid behaving now? In a cold voice, I replied to his mocking tone. Our daughter has passed away. What? He seemed shocked. She developed pneumonia because you locked her, already sick with a cold, in that freezing shed. Despite the treatments, she didn't make it. That's a lie, right? It's your fault. I'm reporting this to the police. I could sense his panic over the phone. I didn't mean for that to happen, I swear. His excuses were futile. I don't want to talk to you right now. I'll handle Ellie's funeral. We'll discuss things later. When I confided in Mrs. Rothery about wanting to take action against my husband, she introduced me to a lawyer. We agreed to meet at the lawyer's office. 3 days later, I sat face to face with Dennis at his attorney's office. I'm sorry about Ellie. I never intended for her to die. It's too late for apologies. Plus, you've been quite busy these past days. I began laying out the evidence I had gathered over the past 3 days. You charged $30,000 on games using my cash card, withdrew the $10,000 limit from the bank ATM, and even started the process to buy a $50,000 car. Do you even care about being a father? I can't be with someone as dangerous as you. I want a divorce. If we divorce, I'll be at a loss, right? A loss? Well, if we part ways, you won't get this. I placed the document I found in his bag on the table. It was a life insurance policy with Dennis as the beneficiary. You were after my money and my life. No, I just wanted us to enjoy life together. But secretly taking out life insurance on me and locking me in the shed could be seen as an attempt on my life. What? The lawyer beside me nodded in agreement. He explained to Dennis that locking me in the shed and the cold and unauthorized withdrawals were crimes. Dennis seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation, his face turning pale and his body shivering. Lisa, please, don't go to the police. Aren't we a couple? You didn't listen when I begged you to let us out of the shed. I'm sorry. I truly regret it. I want a divorce. I'll also be claiming the money you spent from my bank card, compensation from the divorce, and child support in a lump sum. His eyes widened. Child support? Why? Because it's needed to raise Ellie. But she's gone, right? Ellie barely survived. What? Why did you lie? My daughter was in critical condition, connected to numerous tubes. Seeing her like that broke my heart, but she miraculously pulled through. I had hoped that by lying about her death, he might show some remorse, but it only revealed his true colors. I quit my job. I can't pay that much. Please! He started crying and begging. You could do something like that to protect yourself. I wanted you to protect me and my daughter too. I won't let you. Don't say that. Please help me. But I pushed him away and left everything to the lawyer. We divorced, and I reported him to the police. Dennis ended up in prison. After his release, he sold his family home to pay me the $40,000 he spent, plus compensation and child support totaling $170,000. Apparently, he borrowed the rest from shady sources and is now forced into hard labor. I bought a secondhand house in the suburbs for my daughter and me, and found a job. We live happily in a community where neighbors care for us, and my daughter is growing up healthy and strong.
My name is Samantha. Just the other day, my boyfriend Michael proposed to me. Standing in front of a beautifully lit fountain, I was deeply moved when Michael got down on one knee and offered me an engagement ring.
Please, marry me. I promise to make you happy.
I tearfully accepted the ring and said yes to Michael, who assured me happiness. Indeed, Michael said,
I promise to make you happy.
But that's all words. A shocking event unfolded just a week before our wedding. Up until then, everything had been peaceful. Family meetings had gone smoothly. Both our parents got along well, which was a big relief for me. However, Amelia, Michael's sister-in-law, always greeted me with a tight smile. That had me concerned. Michael and I planned to get our marriage certificate issued after the wedding. We wanted to do it on our anniversary, but we were set to start living together a week before the wedding. My in-laws are farmers and own extensive land in the countryside. We were going to build our new home just a few minutes away from where my in-laws and brother and sister-in-law live on the property. Though I felt a bit guilty about having a new home built, my mother-in-law said kindly, "As long as you help with the farming, it's all good." I studied agriculture in college. I have always had an interest in farming and was looking forward to joining the family business. Even before we got married, I would frequently help out, and the in-laws always welcomed me. Initially, I was worried about starting our married life on the in-laws' property, but I felt that we could live harmoniously with them. But one day, while I was helping with the farming as usual, Amelia approached me discreetly and whispered, "Be careful of your father-in-law." Caught off guard, all I could say was, "Huh?" Amelia looked like she wanted to say more, but our conversation was cut short as my father-in-law called out to us from a distance, leaving me puzzled about why she said that. With just a week left until the wedding, everything was set and all that remained was to walk down the aisle. I packed my things and moved into our new home to start living with Michael. We rented a truck, loaded it with our belongings, and headed to our new place with my dad helping us move. I had come to help with the farming, but today was the first day we were going to our newly built home. Dad and I couldn't help but tilt our heads in confusion as we stood in front of it. It seemed like someone was already living in the home that was supposed to be for Michael and me. The door was unlocked, so we gently opened it to find shoes lined up in the entryway. Confused by the obvious signs that someone was living there, Dad and I decided to go greet my in-laws before starting the moving process. When we rang the doorbell, a troubled-looking Michael came out. We told him it looked like someone was living in our new home, to which Michael replied, something was definitely off. And as we puzzled over it, father-in-law appeared saying, sorry about that. Without prior notice, we have decided Michael and Samantha will live here. Could you move your stuff in? We moved David and Amelia to the new house." David and Amelia are my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. Suddenly I remembered what Amelia had warned me about, to watch out for father-in-law. I couldn't help but blurt out, "This is a problem. I was planning on starting our new life in that house. I wasn't informed that I would be living with father-in-law and mother-in-law. Why didn't Michael tell me?" Seeing Michael hesitate only fueled my growing irritation. From his behavior, it was clear Michael knew we would be living together all along. Keeping that a secret until moving day was absolutely unacceptable. Father-in-law, seemingly displeased by my reaction, said, "If you're married, it shouldn't matter if you live together or apart." Although I had intended to help with the farm and didn't object to living on the same property as my in-laws, living together was another matter entirely. Living together or apart are completely different matters, I countered. Dad backed me up. "It feels like you're taking our daughter for granted by informing us after the fact on such an important matter. We would like a proper explanation." Confronted by Dad's firm stance, father-in-law reluctantly answered, "Well, you understand, don't you? It's better to have a young wife at home. Amelia has passed 30, entering middle age. Just having a young girl like Samantha around invigorates me. That's why we chose to live with Samantha and send the older wife to the new house." Dad and I were at a loss for words. Father-in-law's comments suggested he viewed his son's wife merely as a woman. The audacity of father-in-law who talked as if he was saying something entirely reasonable was frightening. "Michael, was it because I'm young that we're living in this house?" I looked to Michael for some relief, but he stayed silent. Whether he was uncomfortable or what, he bit his lip and didn't say a word. That's when Amelia showed up. "Samantha, hi there." Amelia, her face smudged with dirt as if she had been doing some farming, looked at me intently. "You might want to leave today. Living in a home where you're not welcome is just torturous."
What's your problem? You're just the wife, yet you talk back so sassily? You used to be so cute, but you have lost your charm lately.
Father-in-law was furious at Amelia's words. Michael stood there silently observing the tension. Creeped out by the whole scene, I told Dad, "Let's go." Dad agreed to leave for the day. Michael and I decided to have a serious talk tomorrow. Back at my parents' home, I wept in my bed for a while. Why did this have to happen? I felt so devastated. I couldn't imagine being happy, marrying Michael who just followed his father's whims. While pondering what to say to Michael tomorrow, I received a phone call. I didn't recognize the number, but I decided to take the leap and answer. "It's Amelia." A familiar voice echoed. "Amelia, thank you for today. I'm sorry for calling you so suddenly. I found your number on Michael's phone without his permission, so please keep this call a secret from him." My body tensed up as I wondered what Amelia had to risk so much to tell me. Then Amelia started saying something shocking. "I have been wanting to tell you this but never got the chance. I apologize for it coming so last minute before your wedding. I highly discourage you from marrying Michael." The information Amelia shared was jarring. She said that she and her husband had been living with the in-laws, but were kicked out as soon as they learned I was moving in. According to father-in-law, it's because he wants to live with a younger woman. Father-in-law has a thing for younger women and he has cheated on mother-in-law, causing her emotional pain for years. Apparently, father-in-law has even intentionally walked into the changing room after Amelia took a bath saying,
"Oops, my bad,"
with a lecherous grin. He had broken the lock himself and claimed it was an accident, but Amelia knew better. He had also rummaged through their bedroom under the pretense of cleaning and uncomfortably clung to Amelia while she cooked. Amelia was deeply in love with her husband David, and they have children, so she had been hesitant. But being kicked out this time solidified her decision to divorce. After hearing all this, there's no way I could proceed with the marriage. Amelia and I made a pact to take revenge on Michael, David, and father-in-law. I arrived at my in-laws the next day and was greeted by Amelia. We nodded at each other and entered the house where Michael, David, and my in-laws had gathered for a discussion. "Thank you all for coming," I started, locking eyes with Michael. "Let's call off the engagement." A stunned Michael listened as I continued. "You promised to make me happy, Michael. Yet you're fine with me living with this father-in-law? That's allowing me to suffer, right? I won't marry a man who's still controlled by his parents. You changed our housing plans without consulting me, so you are paying the cancellation fees for the wedding." "Huh?" Michael yelled in anger, but father-in-law was even more furious.
"What do you mean by this father-in-law? What don't you like about me?"
Don't Michael and David know? Both averted their eyes amidst the awkward silence. Amelia calmly recounted what father-in-law had done to her. Both Michael and David knew about father-in-law's invasive behavior, like spying on her in the changing room or rummaging through their bedroom. All this done without mother-in-law's knowledge. Mother-in-law's face gradually reddened as Amelia unveiled father-in-law's actions. Seeking support, father-in-law turned to his sons.
"I didn't do any of that, right?"
Cornered by mother-in-law, Michael and David looked down, essentially confirming it. "What the heck? You did that to your daughter-in-law? That's repulsive. Unbelievable."
I didn't."
"So the engagement is off. Clearly, you won't protect me. Seeing what Amelia has endured, living with father-in-law is unacceptable. While an infuriated mother-in-law launched at father-in-law, I told Michael so. Michael stayed quiet, seemingly admitting the only option was to break off the engagement. Beside me, Amelia handed David pre-filled divorce papers. David, who had been pitying Michael and father-in-law until now, was shocked by the papers.
Why all of a sudden?
He stammered. You never stood up for me. If I kept thinking about what father-in-law might do to our daughter, I couldn't continue living with you. Please, let's get divorced, Amelia said. David stared at the divorce papers, his hands trembling. Large tears dropped from his eyes, but Amelia was unwavering. I have extras if you make a mistake, she said, handing him a pen, which he took while still crying. Caught between his brother's tears and their parents' major blow-up, Michael must have been struggling too.
I really love Samantha. I knew Dad was a womanizer, but going against him wasn't an option, especially in this small town.
I can forgive you for making decisions behind my back, favoring your father over me. No matter what Michael says, I have made up my mind to break off the engagement. Our parents are furious at Michael, so there is no going back now. Michael seemed devastated.
Is that so?
He wiped away a tear from his eyes. Being in the same space with a sobbing brother and a feuding couple felt like hell on earth. After Amelia got David to draft the divorce papers, we headed to our new place. I looked after her daughter while Amelia packed up her stuff. She plans to file for divorce today and head back to her parents' home with her daughter. Thank you so much for helping me dodge a bullet with that family. No worries, I wish I had told you sooner. We both chose the wrong men. But let's make sure we're happy from here on out. Amelia, who always seems so cool, had a charming smile. After watching Amelia walk away, hand in hand with her cheerful daughter, I returned to my family home. Later, I made sure Michael paid for the wedding cancellation fees. He seemed fully aware of his wrongdoings and paid without any resistance, which I appreciated. Michael's family lived in a rural area where gossip is the wife's main form of entertainment. Naturally, Michael's family became the target of good gossip. After all that fuss, even his mom ended up divorcing his dad. Their family became infamous as the household both sons' fiancés ran away from. Since I work in agriculture, I sometimes hear rumors about Michael's family. After his mom left, his dad drowned his sorrows in alcohol. The farm work, once shared between his parents, Michael, David, and Amelia, is now solely on Michael and David. They had to scale down their large farm because they couldn't manage it anymore. Though I was initially upset about breaking off the engagement with Michael, I have recovered now. I am not interested in dating or marrying for a while, just focusing on work and my hobbies. Thinking back, I am relieved I didn't become part of that family, and I'm forever grateful to Amelia.